heavy document hit the mahogany with a thud that silenced the room. My sister flashed her practiced smile and said, "You can hate me, but take the house." Everyone gasped at her generosity, but my blood ran cold. I stared at the deed, and the address wasn't a gift. It was the home I had bought 3 years ago. If I signed her papers, I wasn't accepting a present. I was admitting to a crime. My name is Abigail Knight, and I have spent 34 years learning that the most dangerous things in life often come wrapped in silk ribbons. I sat at the far end of the long white-clothed table, nursing a glass of sparkling water that had gone flat 20 minutes ago. We were at the Cardinal, a bistro in downtown Raleigh that charged $30 for an appetizer, and insisted on lighting that was dim enough to hide the prices, but bright enough to catch the jewelry of its patrons. It was my mother's 65th birthday, and the air smelled of roasted garlic, expensive perfume, and performative anxiety. My mother, Marion Hart, sat at the head of the table, looking like a queen holding court. She was flanked by my 3 teenage nephews, who were currently scrolling through their phones with the kind of disinterest that only 15-year-olds can perfect. I was the reliable daughter, the one who had arrived 10 minutes early to ensure the reservation was correct, the one who had coordinated with the Sumayor, and the one who was currently being ignored. That was fine by me. In the Hart family dynamic, invisibility was a survival strategy. I ran a thumb over the condensation on my glass. My life was quiet, and I liked it that way. I owned a small but aggressive investment firm called Juniper Ridge Holdings LLC. I spent my days analyzing distressed assets and market trends, and my nights in a sprawling mid-century modern ranch house in the suburbs that I had bought with my own money, renovated with my own hands, and placed under my company's name for privacy. I did not ask for help. I did not ask for attention, but attention was coming. The heavy oak doors of the private dining room swung open, and the atmosphere in the room shifted instantly. It was a physical change like the drop in pressure before a hurricane. Vera Hart had arrived. My sister did not just enter a room. She annexed it. She was 42 minutes late. She was wearing a structured cream blazer that probably cost more than my car. And her hair was a perfect glossy curtain of blonde that seemed immune to the humidity of North Carolina. She looked like money. Not the quiet kind of money I managed, but the loud screaming kind of money that gets your face on the cover of business magazines under headlines about disrupting industries. So sorry everyone. The jet had a mechanical issue in Teterboro, and then the driver got lost. Vera announced, her voice breathless and charming. She swept over to our mother, planting a kiss on her cheek that was careful not to smudge her makeup. "Happy birthday, Mom. You look radiant." "You made it," Mom said, her eyes instantly welling up. The tension that had been in her shoulders since the appetizers arrived vanished. "I was worried. I would never miss this," Vera lied. She turned to the table, her gaze sweeping over her sons, who actually put their phones down and finally landing on me. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. It never did. It was a shark smile, efficient and predatory. "Hello, Abby. You look sensible." "Hi, Vera," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Glad you could join us." Vera took the seat opposite me, commanding the waiter with a snap of her fingers to bring a bottle of champagne that wasn't on the menu. For the next hour, I ceased to exist as a person and became part of the audience. Vera regaled the table with stories of her latest acquisition in Silicon Valley, her charity gala in London, and the difficult conversation she had with a senator about tax loopholes. My nephews hung on her every word. Mom looked at her as if she were the second coming. I just ate my sea base and checked the time on my watch. It was during the dessert course, a towering chocolate soul that required its own serving spoon, that the pivot happened. Vera set her wine glass down with a deliberate clink. The sound was sharp enough to cut through the chatter. "You know," Vera began, her voice dropping to a register that signaled she was about to share wisdom. I was thinking about you on the flight over, Abby. I stiffened. Nothing good ever came from Vera thinking about me. Is that so? Yes, she sighed, leaning forward, her elbows on the table. I worry about you. Really, I do. You're so isolated out there in that little suburb. Just you and your spreadsheets. It's not healthy. I'm happy, Vera, I said tight-lipped. Are you? She tilted her head. Or are you just hoarding your pennies? Mom told me you didn't even want to chip in for the Europe trip next summer. The table went quiet. My face heated up. I told Mom I have a conflicting schedule with a merger. I said, looking at my mother, who suddenly found her napkin very interesting. It wasn't about the money. It's always about money with you. Abigail, Vera said softly, sadly. You grasp at it so tightly. It makes you hard. It makes you selfish. You've let your career turn you into a miser. And it breaks my heart to see you living like a hermit while the family tries to connect. The gaslighting was so precise, so practiced that for a second I almost admired the artistry. She was painting me as the villain in front of the people I cared about, using my independence as proof of my coldness. I am not a miser, I said, my voice low. I am responsible. Responsibility is just a word cheap people use to justify their lack of generosity, Vera countered. She reached into her oversized leather tote bag. But I'm not here to fight. It's Mom's birthday and I realize that I have been blessed with so much. While you struggle. I do not struggle, I said, gripping the edge of the table. Vera soothed. It's okay to admit it. I want to fix it. I want to fix us. She pulled out a thick document bound in blue legal backing. It hit the table with a heavy, authoritative thud. It slid across the white tablecloth, knocking over the salt shaker, and came to a rest right in front of my plate. Vera smiled, and this time it looked almost benevolent. You can hate me, but take the house. The silence that followed was absolute. My nephew's mouths hung open. Mom gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. Vera, Mom breathed. Oh, Vera, you didn't. I did, Vera said, keeping her eyes locked on mine. I bought it outright. No mortgage, no strings. It's yours, Abigail. A fresh start. A place where you can actually host family without being ashamed of your budget. Finally, Mom whispered, looking at me with teary eyes. Finally, you let your sister help you. I stared at the document. My heart was hammering against my ribs, but not from gratitude. It was a cold, sharp instinct, the kind that wakes you up at 3 o'clock in the morning when you hear glass breaking. I knew Vera. She didn't give gifts. She made investments. I reached out and flipped the cover page open. The header was standard legal typeface. Quitclaim deed recorded in Wake County. Grantor VeraArt Properties, LLC. Granted Juniper Ridge Holdings, LLC. My eyes scanned down to the property description. I expected to see one of the investment condos Vera owned downtown, or maybe a fixer-upper she wanted to unload for a tax write-off. I read the address. Then I read it again. 1402 Oakwood Drive. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. The blood drained from my face so fast I felt dizzy. That was not a new house. That was my house. That was the house I had purchased 3 years ago. The house I paid property taxes on. The house where my cat was currently sleeping on the radiator. How could she give me a deed to my own house? The only way a quitclaim deed from her to me would make any sense is if at some point prior to this moment, the title had been transferred from me to her. But I had never sold my house. I had never signed a transfer. My mind raced, connecting the dots with terrifying speed. For Vera to give me the house back, she first had to steal it. She must have forged a deed transferring the property from Juniper Ridge Holdings to her own shell company, recorded it, and was now gifting it back to me publicly to look like a savior. Why? Why go through the trouble of stealing it just to give it back? Then I saw the second stack of papers she was sliding toward me. Just a formality, Vera said, her voice breezy, but her eyes hard as flint. My lawyers are sticklers. It's just an acknowledgement of gift and a standard release. It basically says you accept the property as is, and you won't sue me for any defects or clerical errors in the chain of title. You know how messy paperwork gets. She uncapped a gold fountain pen and held it out to me. Sign it, Abby. Make Mom happy. Go on, Abigail. Mom urged, her voice thick with emotion. Don't be stubborn. Your sister is giving you a home. The least you can do is say thank you. I looked at the release. The legal jargon was dense, but the intent was clear. General release of all claims. If I signed this, I was retroactively validating whatever fraudulent transfer she had executed to get the title in the first place. I would be accepting the house as a gift, which meant I couldn't claim it was stolen. I would be washing her hands of the crime she had committed against me. And if I didn't sign, I would be the ungrateful sister causing a scene at my mother's birthday. I looked at the pen. I looked at Vera. She was watching me with a smug expectancy, waiting for the trap to snap shut. She didn't know that I read deeds for a living. She didn't know that I knew exactly what consideration $10 meant on a transfer line. I forced the muscles in my face to relax. I didn't take the pen. Instead, I reached out and closed the folder. This is a lot to process, I said. My voice was steady, surprising even me. I'm overwhelmed, Vera. It's just a signature, Vera said, the pen still hovering. Do it now so we can celebrate. I can't sign legal documents after 2 glasses of wine. I lied. I hadn't finished one. My compliance officer would have a stroke. I need to read this over with a clear head. Vera's smile tightened at the edges. Abby, don't ruin this. The notary is actually my driver. He's waiting outside. We can get it done in 2 minutes. No, I said. I picked up the folder and slipped it into my tote bag. I'll take it home. I'll look at it in the morning. Thank you, Vera. It's unbelievable. Abigail, Mom snapped. For heaven's sake. It's fine, Mom, Vera said, cutting her off, though her eyes were drilling holes into me. She capped the pen with a sharp click. She's in shock. Let her take it home. She'll realize what's good for her. She picked up her wine glass. To family, she toasted, her voice dripping with ice. To family? I echoed, my hand clutching my bag under the table so hard my knuckles turned white. I spent the rest of the dinner in a fog of adrenaline. I answered questions automatically. I smiled when appropriate, but my mind was back at the courthouse records. How had she done it? A forged notary stamp, a fake ID, and why now? As the check came, Vera grabbed it. Naturally, my phone buzzed in my lap. I glanced down, expecting a work email. It was a text from Mrs. Gable, my neighbor across the street. She was a 70-year-old insomniac who monitored the neighborhood like a hawk. Hi, dear. I didn't know you were moving out. The truck is huge. My stomach dropped through the floor. What I typed back, my fingers trembling. The moving truck, she replied. Big yellow one. They've been carrying boxes out for the last 20 minutes. I saw your mother's friend directing them. I looked up. Vera was laughing at something one of my nephews said, looking completely relaxed. Mom was beaming. They weren't just transferring the paper. They were physically taking possession. I have to go, I said, standing up abruptly. My chair scraped loudly against the floor. We haven't even had coffee, Mom complained. Stomach ache, I said. Something I ate. Thank you for dinner, Vera. Happy birthday, Mom. I didn't wait for a response. I turned and walked out of the restaurant, my heels clicking on the hardwood like the ticking of a bomb. I didn't run until I hit the cool night air of the parking lot. Vera had stolen my house on paper. Now she was stealing the life inside it, and she had handed me the deed like a trophy, daring me to do something about it. I unlocked my car, threw the bag with the deed onto the passenger seat, and started the engine. The dashboard clock read 9:15 at night. I wasn't going to sleep tonight. I was going to war. The drive from downtown Raleigh to my subdivision usually took 25 minutes. I made it in 14. I drove with the kind of reckless precision that usually precedes a crash. Weaving through the late-night traffic on the Belt Line, my knuckles white against the steering wheel. The silence in the car was deafening, broken only by the roar of the engine and the blood rushing in my ears. I kept waiting for my phone to ring, for my mother to call and say it was a misunderstanding, or for Vera to laugh and say it was a twisted joke. But the phone remained dark. The only light came from the headlight slicing through the humidity of the North Carolina night. When I turned on to Oakwood Drive, the air in my lungs turned to solid ice. Mrs. Gable had not exaggerated. Parked squarely on my driveway, blocking the path to the garage, was a 26 FT moving truck with a logo of Blue Mule Logistics emblazoned on the side. The engine was idling, spewing diesel fumes into the air that usually smelled of jasmine and pine. The back ramp was deployed, a metal tongue ling out onto my asphalt, bridging the gap between the truck and my front porch. I slammed the brakes, my tires screeching against the curb. I didn't even bother to kill the engine. I threw the door open and sprinted across the lawn, my heels sinking into the grass. I paid a landscaping crew $150 a month to maintain. The scene before me was a surrealist nightmare. My front door, the solid mahogany one I had sanded and stained myself 2 summers ago, was wide open. Light poured out from the foyer, illuminating the crime scene. Careful with that, it's vintage. The voice belonged to my mother, Marianne. She was standing on my porch, holding a clipboard, directing 2 men in blue jumpsuits who were currently hauling a massive, unfamiliar velvet sofa up my steps. She looked for all the world like a general commanding troops, or worse, like a homeowner directing a renovation. My nephews, 3 boys ranging from 14 to 17, were treating my front yard like a tailgate party. The middle one, Braden, was tossing a football to the oldest, Chase, who jumped up to catch it and landed squarely in my bed of prize-winning hydrangeas. "Get off the flowers!" I screamed, the sound tearing out of my throat before I could stop it. The boys froze. Chase looked at his feet, then at me with a mixture of guilt and annoyance. "Chill, Aunt Abby," he mumbled, stepping out of the crushed blooms. "It's just dirt." I ignored him and stormed up the walkway, dodging a mover who was carrying what looked like a sculpture of a greyhound. I reached the bottom of the porch steps just as my mother turned to face me. She didn't look guilty. She looked annoyed that I had interrupted her flow. "Abigail," she said, adjusting her glasses, "you're making a scene. The neighbors are going to wake up." "The neighbors are the ones who called me," I shouted, pointing a shaking finger at the truck. "What is this? What are you doing?" "We're moving in." Vera's voice floated down from the doorway. She stepped out of my house. My house? She had ditched the blazer she wore at dinner and was now in a cashmere sweater and jeans, looking effortlessly domestic. She held a mug of tea in her hand. I recognized the mug. It was my favorite ceramic one, the blue one I bought in Charleston. "Get out," I said, my voice trembling with a rage so potent it felt like poison. "Get out of my house. Put my mug down. Tell these people to leave." Vera took a sip of the tea. "Now, Abigail, let's be rational. We discussed this at dinner. I gave you the house. It's a gift. But since the house is so large, for bedrooms. Really? For one person, it only makes sense for the family to utilize the space. Mom sold her condo yesterday. She needs a place. I'm in between penthouses while the city renovates the uptown loft. The boys need stability. You sold Mom's condo. I looked at my mother. You lived there for 10 years. You sold it yesterday. The market was hot. Honey, Mom said, waving her hand dismissively. And Vera made a good point. Why should I live alone when we have this beautiful estate in the family? Family is family. We stick together. This is not the family's estate, I yelled, stepping onto the porch. It is my house. I bought it. I pay the mortgage. I pay the taxes. Vera set the mug down on the railing. She pulled her phone from her back pocket and tapped the screen a few times. She turned it around and shoved it in my face. It was a high-resolution photo of the deed she had thrown on the table at dinner. Read the recording stamp. Abby, Vera said softly. It was recorded 5 days ago. According to the Wake County Register of Deeds, Vera Hart Properties LLC owns this plot of land. And since I am the managing member of that LLC, I am the owner. And as the owner, I am inviting our mother and my children to stay. That deed is a forgery, I hissed. I never signed the transfer to you. The law says otherwise, Vera said, her voice dropping to a whisper, intimate and chilling. Possession is 9/10 of the law. And right now we have possession. We have the paper. And in the eyes of the sheriff, if you call him, this is a civil dispute, a family squabble over who gets the master bedroom. I moved to push past her to storm into my own hallway, but the door slammed shut. One of the movers had closed it from the inside. I lunged for the handle. I gripped the brass lever and shoved. It didn't budge. I tried again, rattling it violently. Locked. I need my key, I said, patting my pockets, my panic rising. I grabbed my key ring from my purse and jammed my house key into the lock. It slid in halfway and stopped. I pushed harder. It wouldn't turn. It wouldn't even seat properly. I pulled it out and stared at the keyway. The metal looked shiny. No, you changed the locks, I whispered. I looked up at Vera. You changed the locks on my house. Security upgrade, Vera said, shrugging. The old ones were flimsy. We went with a keypad system. Much safer for the boys. That is illegal. You cannot lock me out of my own home. I can lock anyone out of my home. Vera corrected. And right now, until you sign that release and accept the gift back, this is technically my home. I'm just letting you visit. My vision blurred. I wanted to scream. I wanted to pick up the ceramic planter next to me and smash it through the window. Every instinct in my body screamed for violence, for a physical reclamation of my territory. But then I saw the red light. It was small, a tiny crimson dot pulsing in the corner of the porch ceiling. It was my old security camera. I had installed it years ago. It was a wide-angle lens that covered the entire porch and driveway. It was still blinking. It was recording. I froze. If I smashed the window, I would be the aggressor. If I attacked Vera, I would be arrested for assault. If I screamed like a banshee, I would look like the unstable sister Vera had spent years painting me as. I looked at the camera. Then I looked at the new keypad lock. Then I looked at the blue mule truck. They were waiting for me to break. They were waiting for me to give them the footage they needed to get a restraining order, effectively barring me from the property forever. I took a deep breath. The air tasted of diesel and betrayal. I stepped back, creating a distance of exactly 6 feet between me and my sister. I smoothed my skirt. I looked directly up at the camera lens, ensuring my face was clearly visible in the infrared light. I am Abigail Knight, I said, my voice loud, clear and devoid of the hysteria that was clawing at my throat. I am the sole legal owner of the property at 1402 Oakwood Drive. I have not authorized any transfer of title. I have not authorized any change of locks. I pointed at Vera, then at Maren, then at the movers. I do not grant permission for any of these individuals to enter my home. You are trespassing on my property. I am asking you to leave immediately." Vera laughed. It was a sharp barking sound. "Oh, stop acting like you're in an episode of Law and Order. Abby, it's embarrassing. I am creating a record," I said, still facing the camera. "You're creating a scene," Mom said, shaking her head. "Just come inside, Abigail. We saved the guest room for you. It's the one with the nice morning light. You can sign the papers in the morning and we can all have pancakes." The guest room. I looked at my mother. "You put me in the guest room of my own house. Well, Vera needs the master suite." Mom explained as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "She has more clothes." The audacity was so pure it was almost blinding. They had not just stolen my house. They had reorganized the hierarchy of my life within an hour. "I am not coming in as a guest," I said, "and I am not signing anything." "You will," Vera said. She stepped closer, lowering her voice so the camera wouldn't catch the edge in it. "Because if you don't, you're homeless. And I know you, Abby. You like your comforts. You like your little routines. You'll sign the acknowledgement tomorrow. You'll take the house back with us inside it. And you'll thank me for upgrading your lifestyle." "How did you get in?" I asked. The question had been gnawing at me. Even with a fake deed, they couldn't just walk through a locked door without breaking it down. And the door frame was pristine. Vera didn't answer. She just smiled and nodded toward Mom. Marianne was clutching her purse against her chest. In her right hand, dangling from a ring with a ridiculous fuzzy pink keychain, was a silver key. I stared at it. 3 years ago, when I bought the place, Mom had cried. She said she worried about me living alone. She said, "What if you slip in the shower? What if you choke on a grape? Who will help you?" Guilt, the Hart family currency. So I had given her a spare key for emergencies only. I had said, "You gave her the key," I said to my mother. It wasn't a question. Vera said she lost hers. Mom said, her eyes shifting away from mine, and she said she needed to get the measurements for the surprise. It was supposed to be a surprise renovation. "Abby, we were trying to do something nice. You used my trust to rob me." I said, "Oh, stop being so dramatic." Mom snapped. "Nobody is robbing you. We are family." I looked at the two of them. My sister, the billionaire shark who needed to consume everything in her path to feel full. My mother, the willing accomplice who disguised her weakness as maternal concern. They had orchestrated this perfectly. If I called the police right now, the responding officer would see a mother, a sister, and 3 kids. Vera would produce the deed. Mom would produce the key I gave her voluntarily. The officer would look at me angry, shouting, standing outside, and tell me to take it up with the judge. They wanted me to lose control. They wanted a domestic disturbance charge. I wasn't going to give it to them. I looked at the mover who was currently maneuvering my favorite reading chair, a mid-century EMS replica I had saved for 6 months to buy through the door. "Careful with that," Vera called out to him. "Actually, put that in the garage. It doesn't match the new aesthetic." That broke something inside me. But it wasn't a break that led to screaming. It was a break that led to clarity. I reached into my bag and pulled out my phone. I took a picture of the truck. I took a picture of the license plate. I took a picture of Vera standing in my doorway and Mom holding the key. "What are you doing?" Vera asked, her smile faltering for a fraction of a second. "Documenting the crime scene." I said, "It's not a crime scene. It's a housewarming." Vera scoffed. "Come on, Abby. Don't be pathetic. Come inside. Have a drink." "No," I said. I backed down the stairs. "I'm not coming in." "Where are you going to go?" Mom called out, her voice pitching up with sudden fake worry. "It's late. You can't just drive around." "I'm going to a hotel," I said. And then I'm going to a lawyer. You can't afford a lawyer who can beat me? Vera shouted from the porch. The mask was slipping now. The neighbors were starting to turn on their porch lights. I have an army of them. Abigail, I'm trying to help you. Don't you dare walk away from me. I stopped at the door of my car. I looked back at the house. My living room window was glowing with warmth, but it felt like looking at a stranger's life. I saw my nephew Chase walk past the window holding a can of soda. He didn't use a coaster. He set it right on my antique walnut side table. I flinched, but I didn't turn back. You can keep the house for tonight, Vera, I said loud enough for the camera to catch it one last time. But don't get comfortable. I got into my car and slammed the door. As I reversed out of the driveway, I saw Vera standing on the porch, her arms crossed, watching me. She looked like a captain on the bridge of a ship she had just captured. She thought she had won. She thought that by taking my physical space, she had taken my power. She had forgotten one thing. I was an investment analyst. I knew how to track assets. I knew that every transaction left a paper trail. No matter how much money you threw over it to hide it, I drove to the end of the street and pulled over. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely type. I opened the Marriott app and booked a room at the residence in 3 towns over. Then I opened my banking app. I needed to make sure they hadn't drained my accounts yet. The balance was still there. Good. I looked in the rearview mirror. The blue mule truck was still there. A yellow stain on my sanctuary. They wanted a civil dispute. They wanted a family drama. I was going to give them a federal investigation. I put the car in drive and sped away into the darkness, leaving my home behind, but taking my rage with me. It was the only fuel I had left, and I had a long night ahead of me. The residence in room smelled of lemon pledge and stale air conditioning. It was a sterile beige box that felt like the complete opposite of the home I had just been forced to abandon. I sat at the small laminate desk. The glow of my laptop screen the only light in the room. The digital clock on the nightstand read 3:14 in the morning. My body was exhausted, aching from the adrenaline crash, but my mind was vibrating at a frequency that made sleep impossible. I was not crying. I was not pacing. I was investigating. I had logged into the Wake County Register of Deeds website. It was a clunky government-run portal that looked like it had not been updated since the early 2000s, but it held the truth that Vera was trying to bury under emotional manipulation and expensive lawyers. I typed Juniper Ridge Holdings LLC into the GRTOR search field. My finger hovered over the Enter key. I took a breath, held it, and pressed down. The screen refreshed. A list of documents appeared. Most were familiar. The original warranty deed from when I bought the house 3 years ago, the deed of trust for my mortgage, which I had paid off early last year. And then there it was, the top entry, instrument type, quitclaim deed grantor Juniper Ridge Holdings LLC, grantee Vera Hart Properties LLC, recording date October 14th. I clicked the image link. The PDF loaded slowly, line by line, like a striptease of my own financial ruin. When the document finally resolved, I leaned in so close my nose almost touched the screen. It was a standard North Carolina quitclaim deed form. The legal description of the property was correct. The parcel identification number was correct. And at the bottom there was my signature. Abigail Knight, managing member. I stared at it. It was a good forgery, a very good one. The slant was right. The way the A looped into the B was almost perfect. But to me, looking at my own name, it felt like looking at a stranger wearing a mask of my face. The pressure was too even. When I signed my name, I bare down hard on the K in Knight. This signature floated. It lacked the aggression of my hand. I looked at the date next to the signature. October 12th. I grabbed my phone and opened my calendar app, scrolling back to October. On October 12th, I was not in Raleigh. I was not even in North Carolina. I was in Atlanta attending a distressed asset conference. I had checked into the Omni Hotel at 4 in the afternoon. I had dinner with a client at 7. I had the Uber receipts. I had the hotel folio. I had the credit card statement showing a charge for a glass of wine at the hotel bar at 10 at night. I could not have signed a deed in Raleigh on October 12th. I scrolled down to the notary block. State of North Carolina, County of Wake. I, Elias Vance, a notary public for said county and state, do hereby certify that Abigail Knight personally appeared before me this day. Elias Vance. I did not know an Elias Vance. I had never met an Elias Vance. I opened a new tab and searched the North Carolina Secretary of State's notary database. I typed in the name Elias Vance. Commission number 202 or 4. Status active. He was real, which meant one of two things. Either Elias Vance was a victim of identity theft and someone had forged his stamp, 2, or Elias Vance was on Vera's payroll. Given the efficiency of the operation, I bet on the latter. My phone buzzed on the desk, startling me. It was a notification from my email app, just a spam message about a shoe sale, but it triggered a thought. I had signed up for a title monitoring service 2 years ago. It was one of those things you pay $15 a month for and forget about, like gym memberships or streaming services you never watch. They were supposed to email me if any document was recorded against my property. Why hadn't I seen an alert? I opened my email client. I searched for Title Guard. Nothing in my inbox. I clicked on the spam folder. There it was. Buried between an offer for cheap Viagra and a scam claiming I had won a cruise. Alert. New document recorded against parcel 00455. Date October 14th. I felt a wave of nausea. The email had arrived while I was in Atlanta in the middle of closing a massive deal. I had been checking my email on my phone, swiping through notifications, focused on work. My spam filter had decided this was junk. And because I was distracted, I had missed the one warning shot that could have saved me. Vera had counted on that. She knew I was busy. She knew I was traveling. She had timed the recording of the deed perfectly. I needed help and I needed it now. I looked at the time, 3:45 in the morning. I scrolled through my contacts until I found Kelsey Wynn. Kelsey and I had gone to business school together while I went into investment. She had gone into the title and escrow world. She had spent 10 years closing commercial real estate deals. She knew the plumbing of the property system better than anyone I knew. I hit call. It rang 4 times. I was about to hang up when a groggy, growly voice answered. Abby, is everything okay? It is almost 4 in the morning. Vera stole my house, I said. No preamble, no pleasantries. There was a pause on the other end, then the sound of rustling sheets and a lamp clicking on. Okay, I am awake. Say that again. She forged a quick claim deed. I said, my voice steady but tight. She transferred the title from my LLC to hers. She moved in tonight while I was at dinner. She changed the locks. I am at a hotel. Did she record it? Kelsey asked. Her voice was instant business. The sleep was gone. Yes. Recorded October 14th. I just found it online. Is it notarized? Yes. A notary named Elias Vance. Kelsey let out a long, low whistle. Okay, listen to me carefully, Abby. This is bad. This is really bad. I know it is bad, Kelsey. I am homeless. No, I mean legally, Kelsey said, because that deed is recorded and notarized. Carries a presumption of validity. The law assumes a notarized document is real. Until a judge says otherwise, Vera is the legal owner of that house. But it is a forgery. I have proof I was in Atlanta. It does not matter to the police, Kelsey explained. If you call the cops, they will look at her deed, see the stamp, and tell you it is a civil matter. They will not kick her out. They will tell you to sue her. That is why she felt comfortable moving in. She knows the system protects the paper, not the truth. So she just gets to keep it. No, Kelsey said. But you have to fight this in court, not on the lawn. You need to file a quiet title action immediately, and you need to file a list pendants, a notice of pending litigation against the property first thing in the morning. That freezes the title so she cannot sell it or mortgage it while you fight. She already mentioned a mortgage, I said, remembering the conversation at dinner. She talked about leveraging assets. Then you have to move fast, Kelsey said. If she takes out a loan against the house, the bank puts a lien on it. Even if you win the house back, you might inherit her debt if the bank can prove they were a bona fide lender. You need a lawyer, Abby, and not the corporate guys you use for your firm. You need a litigator, someone who eats fraud for breakfast. Who, I asked. Who is the meanest son of a in Raleigh? Miles Breener, Kelsey said without hesitation. He is expensive. He is rude. He wears suits that went out of style in the 90s, but he hates title fraud. He destroyed a developer last year who tried a similar stunt on a widow. I will text you his number. Be at his office at 8. Do not call ahead. Just show up. Thank you, Kelsey. Abby, she said, her voice softening. Lock your credit. Lock your business accounts. If she forged a deed, she has your personal information. This might just be the first domino. I hung up and spent the next 3 hours doing exactly that. I froze my credit at all 3 bureaus. I called my business banker and put a verbal password on all wire transfers. I changed the passwords to every single account I owned. By the time the sun began to bleed through the cheap curtains of the hotel room, I had built a digital fortress around what was left of my life. At 7:45, I was standing outside a brick building on the edge of downtown. A small brass plaque next to the door read Breener Associates. I waited until I saw a man unlock the front door. He was in his 50s with thinning gray hair and a suit that looked like it had been slept in. He held a large Dunkin' Donuts coffee cup. I caught the door before it closed. "We are not open," he grunted, not looking back. "Come back at 9 o'clock. "My name is Abigail Knight," I said, stepping into the hallway. "Kelsey W. sent me. My sister stole my house with a forged deed, and I need to file a list pendants before the banks open." Miles Breener stopped. He turned around slowly and looked at me over the rim of his glasses. His eyes were sharp, intelligent, and incredibly tired. "The billionaire sister?" he asked. "Virart." "Yes." He took a sip of his coffee. "Come in." His office was a testament to the death of trees. Stacks of files covered every surface. There was a smell of old paper and peppermint. He swept a pile of magazines off a chair and gestured for me to sit. "Talk," he said fast. "I have court at 10. I laid it out. I did not use emotional language. I did not talk about my mother's betrayal or my nephew's ruining my flowers. I spoke in dates, document numbers, and statutes. I showed him the PDF of the deed on my laptop. I showed him the screenshot of my hotel receipt from Atlanta. I showed him the photo of the movers in the truck. Miles listened without interrupting. He took notes on a yellow legal pad with a fountain pen. When I finished, he sat back and tapped the pen against his chin. "It is sloppy," he said. "Sloppy?" I blinked. "It worked. She's in the house." "No, the forgery is good." Miles clarified. "The execution is sloppy. Using a notary she likely controls. Recording it while you were out of town. But leaving a digital trail moving in immediately, it screams desperation. Usually these guys sit on a deed for months. They wait for you to die or move. She is rushing. She is arrogant," I said. "She thinks she is untouchable." "Maybe," Miles said. He leaned forward. "Or maybe she is broke." I stared at him. "Vera, she is worth hundreds of millions. She was on the cover of Forbes 3 years ago. Keywords 3 years ago, Miles said. He spun his monitor around so I could see it. He had pulled up a financial news terminal. I track high net worth individuals because they are often the ones committing the most interesting fraud. Look at this. He pointed to a graph. It was the stock price of Hart Global, Ver's main holding company. It was trending down, not crashing, but bleeding. She has been liquidating assets for 6 months, Miles said. Selling condos in Miami, selling a yacht in impressive silence. And look at the court dockets. He clicked another tab. A list of lawsuits appeared. Breach of contract, unpaid vendor invoices. 2 construction companies are suing her for non-payment on that uptown loft she mentioned to you. She told me it was being renovated, I whispered. It is stopped because she stopped paying the contractors, Miles said. He looked at me, his expression grim. Abigail, people with real money do not steal their little sister's suburban house. They do not risk a felony for $400,000 of equity unless they absolutely need that equity. She wants a mortgage. I realized the pieces were clicking together. She needs collateral, quick, clean collateral to secure a loan to pay off someone else. Exactly. Miles said she is robbing Peter to pay Paul. And you are Peter. She needs your house to show the bank she has unencumbered assets. She probably has a hard money loan lined up that is waiting for a title update. He stood up and grabbed his jacket. We are going to the courthouse, he said. We are going to file that list pendants. We are going to cloud that title so dark that no bank in America will touch it, and then we are going to draft a complaint for fraud, trespass, and conversion. Can we get her out? I asked. Not today, Miles said, opening the door. The law is slow, but we can make sure that house becomes a prison for her. If she can't borrow against it, it is useless to her, and if she is as cash poor as I think she is going to panic. She tried to get me to sign a release, I said, following him out. She said it was a gift. Of course she did. Miles chuckled darkly. If you sign that, the fraud vanishes. It becomes a consensual transfer. Never sign anything. Do not even text her back. I won't. Good. Miles locked the office door. You are not fighting a sister anymore. Abigail, you are fighting a drowning woman who is trying to use you as a life raft. And drowning women will pull you under without hesitating. We walked to his car. The morning air was cool, but I felt a heat rising in my chest. Vera wasn't just cruel. She was a fraud. She had built a kingdom on sand, and now she was trying to steal my bricks to shore it up. One question, Miles said as he unlocked his beat-up sedan. If we do this, if we go nuclear, there is no going back to Sunday dinners. You are going to destroy her reputation. You might send her to prison. Are you ready for that? I thought about my house. I thought about the blue mule truck. I thought about my mother holding the key. I gave her in confidence. I thought about the phrase, you can hate me, but take the house. She is not my sister, I said, climbing into the passenger seat. She is just the defendant. Miles smiled. It was the first time I had seen him do it. I think we are going to get along just fine. Ms. Knight, I stopped being a sister at exactly 8:30 in the morning on that Tuesday. I became a case file. I became a plaintiff. I became a walking, breathing checklist of defensive maneuvers. Miles Breener had given me my marching orders before I left his office. He had looked at me with those tired, cynical eyes and said, "The law is a shield, Abigail, but it is a heavy one while I lift it. You need to build a wall so high and so thick that when your sister tries to climb it, she breaks her fingernails." I took that literally. My first stop was not the house. Going back to Oakwood Drive was a tactical error at this stage. It would only invite a confrontation that could end with me in handcuffs for disturbing the peace. Instead, I drove to the small nondescript office park where Juniper Ridge Holdings LLC leased a suite. This was the brain of my operation. It was where the original corporate seal was kept. It was where the original unsigned operating agreement lived in a fireproof safe. If Vera was willing to forge a deed, she would not hesitate to raid my office to manufacture proof that she had the authority to do so. She needed to retroactively justify her signature on that quitclaim deed. And for that, she needed my corporate records. I called a locksmith from the car. I did not call the friendly neighborhood guy I had used for years. I found a security firm that specialized in commercial fortifications, the kind that service jewelry stores Andes. I need a total retrofit, I told the dispatcher. I want the cylinders drilled out and replaced. I want a biometric keypad installed. I want a deadbolt that can withstand a battering ram. When do you need this done, ma'am? I am standing in front of my door, I said. I will pay double for an immediate arrival. 45 minutes later, the air in the hallway filled with the screech of metal on metal. I watched the locksmith work with a grim satisfaction. He removed the standard commercial levers and replaced them with heavy-duty brushed steel hardware that looked like it belonged on a bank vault. I didn't stop there. Do you do cameras? I asked him as he programmed my thumbprint into the new scanner. We do, he said. Cloud-based motion sensors. Two-way audio. Install them, I said. I want one facing the door from the hallway. I want one inside facing the safe. And I want window sensors on every pane of glass. If a fly lands on my window, I want to know about it. By noon, my office was no longer just a workspace. It was a bunker. I sat at my desk, the smell of ozone and drilling dust hanging in the air, and opened my laptop. The physical perimeter was secure. Now I had to secure the digital one. Miles had told me to create a clean line of communication. I bought a burner phone with a prepaid plan at a drugstore on the way over. I created a new encrypted email address. I sent the new contact information to Miles and no one else. Not my mother, not my friends, certainly not Vera. Then I opened a new spreadsheet. I titled it Timeline of Events. I started logging everything. October 12th, Atlanta Omni Hotel, verified alibi. October 14th, Wake County Register of Deeds. Fraudulent recording. October 23rd, the Cardinal Restaurant. Presentation of the deed. October 23rd, 9:30 at night. Forced entry and occupation. I treated my life like a forensic audit. I scanned every receipt from my Atlanta trip. I downloaded the Uber history showing my ride from the airport. I pulled the metadata from the photos I had taken of the moving truck. I created a folder called Evidence and backed it up to 3 different cloud servers. I felt a cold, robotic calm settling over me. This was what I did for a living. I analyzed failing companies. I found the rot. I excised it and I restructured the assets. My family was just another failing company. My next call was to the Homeowners Association. The irony of the Oakwood Drive HOA was that they were notoriously strict. They once fined me $50 for leaving my trash bin out 2 hours past the pickup window. Now, I was going to weaponize that pettiness. This is Abigail Knight. I told the property manager, a woman named Linda who lived for rule enforcement. I am the owner of 1402 Oakwood Drive. I am calling to update my guest list. Oh, hi Abigail. Linda chirped. I saw the moving truck last night. I didn't know you had family moving in. Your mother is charming. My mother is not a resident, I said, my voice cutting through her pleasantries like a scalpel. And neither is my sister, Vera Hart. They are unauthorized occupants. I am formally requesting that their access codes to the community gate be revoked immediately. If they are currently using guest passes, I want them deactivated. There was a stunned silence on the other end. Abigail, I don't understand. They are inside the house. That is a police matter which is currently being addressed. He lied smoothly. But as far as the HOA is concerned, they are trespassers. I do not want them to have access to the pool, the clubhouse, or the automated gate system. If they want to enter the neighborhood, they can wait at the visitor lane and call me, and I will not buzz them in. I will have to check the bylaws, Linda stammered. Check them, I said. I am the deed holder on your records until a judge says otherwise. If you facilitate the entry of unauthorized persons, I will name the HOA in the lawsuit for aiding and abetting a security breach. I will deactivate the codes now, Linda said, her voice dropping an octave. I hung up. It was a small victory. Vera would have to manually punch in a code or argue with a guard every time she came home. It was petty. It was inconvenient. It was perfect. But the real war was financial. I called my bank. I didn't call the customer service number. I called the private wealth line that I had access to through my business accounts. I need to place a total freeze on all assets related to Juniper Ridge Holdings and Abigail Knight personally. I told the representative, I am triggering a fraud alert. No checks over $100. No wire transfers without voice verification and a code word. No credit limit increases. We can certainly do that, Ms. Knight. The banker said, I see you have already had some activity today. Let me just verify those for you. My hand froze on the mouse. What activity? There was an inquiry this morning, the banker said, the sound of keyboard clicking coming through the line. A credit pull and an application submission. Application for what? I asked, my stomach tightening. For a home equity line of credit, he said. On the property at 1402 Oakwood Drive, the request is for $2 million. The room seemed to tilt. $2 million. My house was worth maybe $900,000 in the current market. Vera wasn't just trying to borrow against the equity I had built. She was trying to leverage the property for more than twice its value. Likely using her own high net worth status to guarantee the overlever but tying the debt to my asset. Who submitted the application? I asked. It was submitted online, the banker said. Using the login credentials for Juniper Ridge Holdings, the IP address traces to well. It looks like a residential address in Raleigh. My house. She had guessed my password. Or maybe Mom had seen me type it in once. It didn't matter how. Cancel it, I said. Cancel it immediately. That application is fraudulent. I did not authorize it. I can flag it, the banker said, sounding concerned now. But since it was submitted with valid credentials, we have to open an internal investigation. It might take 48 hours to fully purge it from the system. I don't have 48 hours, I snapped. She is trying to encumber the title. If that loan closes, I lose everything. It won't close, Ms. Knight, he assured me. Not with a fraud alert on file. But I see here, wait. What? There is a rush request on the appraisal, he said. The applicant agreed to pay a $500 rush fee to have a drive-by appraisal done today. I closed my eyes. Miles was right. This wasn't just theft. It was a desperate cash grab. Vera was bleeding money and she looked at my house and saw a piggy bank she could smash open. She didn't care if she destroyed my credit, my company, or my life. She needed $2 million and she needed it now. Block it, I said again. And send me the IP logs and the application timestamp. I need everything for the police. I will email it to you within the hour. I hung up the phone and stared at the wall. My hands were trembling, not from fear, but from the sheer magnitude of the betrayal. This wasn't a family dispute. This was financial predation. My phone buzzed on the desk. It was my old personal number, the one I hadn't turned off yet. A text message from Vera. I shouldn't have looked. Miles told me not to engage, but I couldn't help it. Don't be dramatic, Abby. I'm doing this for us. The loan is just bridge financing for a deal that will make us both millions. I'm putting you on the cap table. Stop fighting me. I am helping you. I read the message 3 times. Helping me. She was stealing my home. impersonating my company, and loading me with debt I could never repay. All to float her sinking ship. And she called it help. I didn't reply. Instead, I took a screenshot of the text. I opened my evidence folder and dragged the file in. Then I opened a new email to Miles. Subject: Helilock fraud. Intent to defraud. Miles, she just tried to pull $2 million of equity out of the house. The bank blocked it, but she paid for a rush appraisal. She is desperate, and she just admitted in a text that she is using the house for financing. We have her. I hit send. I looked at the new cameras monitoring my office door. I looked at the heavy steel deadbolt. I was safe in here. But out there on Oakwood Drive, my sister was sitting in my living room, probably sipping wine, wondering why the bank hadn't approved her loan yet. She thought she was playing chess. She didn't realize I had just flipped the board. I stood up and walked to the window. The sun was setting over the parking lot. I had no home to go to tonight. I had a hotel room and a burner phone. But for the first time in 24 hours, I didn't feel like a victim. I felt like a hunter. I picked up my bag. I had one more stop to make before I went back to the hotel. I needed to go to the post office. If Vera was trying to intercept my mail to hide the bank notices, I needed to forward everything to a secure box. Checklist item number 12. I walked out of the office, the heavy door clicking shut behind me with the reassuring sound of a vault sealing tight. The red light of the keypad blinked once. Armed. Let her try to get in here. Let her try. Wednesday morning arrived with a notification on my burner phone that felt like a summon from the principal's office. It was a text from Vera. Coffee at the Roasted Bean. 10 a.m. Let's sign the paperwork and put this mess behind us. I'm tired of fighting. I stared at the screen. The Roasted Bean was a high-tra coffee shop in the center of the Arts District. It was public, loud, and full of witnesses. It was exactly the kind of place you chose when you wanted to pressure someone into submission without causing a scene. I forwarded the text to Miles. His reply came 2 minutes later. Go. Do not sign anything. Get them to explain the why on tape. If she admits the transfer was for tax purposes or lending, we have her on intent. I dressed in my most corporate attire, a navy sheath dress and a sharp blazer. I wasn't going there as a sister. I was going as a CEO protecting her company. I taped a small digital recorder to the inside of my purse, testing the audio levels to ensure it could pick up conversation through the canvas. I also set my phone to record voice memos. Redundancy was the only safety net I had left. When I walked into the shop, the smell of roasted dark roast and cinnamon hit me. It was crowded with freelancers on laptops and moms with strollers. I scanned the room and found Vera immediately. She was sitting at a large corner booth wearing oversized sunglasses and a silk scarf, looking like a celebrity trying to be incognito while desperately hoping someone would recognize her. She wasn't alone. Sitting next to her was a man I didn't recognize. He was 40-some, wearing a suit that was too shiny and a watch that was too big. He was tapping away on a tablet, looking bored. I took a deep breath, checked that my purse was unzipped enough for the microphone, and walked over. You brought back up, I said, sliding into the chair opposite them. Vera took off her sunglasses. Her eyes were rimmed with red, but her makeup was flawless. She gave me a tired, tragic smile. Abby, thank you for coming. This is Greg Sullivan. He's my financial advisor. He's helping me restructure some of the family holdings. Greg didn't stand up. He just gave me a curtain nod. Ms. Knight, let's make this quick. I have a flight to Zurich at 4. Zurich? I repeated, keeping my tone flat. Sounds important. It is, Greg said. He reached into a leather portfolio and pulled out a stack of documents. They were clipped together with heavy binder clips. He slid them across the table toward me. These are the finalization papers for the gift transfer. Vera explained the situation. She explained that she broke into my house. I said, "Oh, Abigail, please." Vera sighed, waving her hand as if swatting away a fly. "We are past that. I told you I am giving you the house. The deed is already prepared to transfer it back to you. See?" She pointed to the top document. It was indeed a quit-claim deed transferring the property from Vera Hart Properties LLC back to Juniper Ridge Holdings LLC. "If you are giving it back," I asked, "why did you take it in the first place? Why go through the trouble of forging my signature on a deed last week just to reverse it today?" Vera exchanged a look with Greg. It was a micro-expression, a split second of calculation. "It's a tax strategy," Vera said smoothly. "We needed to move certain assets into my LLC to balance out some capital gains from the sale of the Miami condos. It is complicated, Abby. It involves carry-forward losses and basis stepping. You wouldn't understand the nuance of it. It's Heil Wealth Management. I have an MBA, Vera." I said, "I understand tax basis and I know that stealing a title to balance a portfolio isn't a strategy. It is fraud. It is only fraud if there is a victim," Greg interjected. His voice was oily, patronizing. "And there is no victim here. You get the house back. Vera gets her tax offset. Everyone wins. We just need you to sign the acknowledgement so we can file the reversal." He tapped a thick document underneath the deed. "Acknowledgement of gift and general release of claims." I picked it up. My eyes scanned the dense legal text. "The undersigned Abigail Knight hereby acknowledges that the transfer of property recorded on October 14th was a consensual transaction. The undersigned agrees to release, indemnify, and hold harmless Vera Hart and her agents from any and all claims, demands, or causes of action." It was a trap, a beautiful legal bear trap. "If I sign this," I said slowly, looking up at them, "I am admitting that I agreed to the first transfer. I am validating the forgery." "You are validating the process," Vera corrected. "It's just paperwork, Abby. It cleans up the chain of title so the county doesn't ask questions. If you don't sign it, the title remains clouded. You won't be able to sell the house. You won't be able to refinance. You'll be stuck in legal limbo for years. And if I do sign it," I countered, "you get to use the consensual transfer to show your lenders that you had the asset on your books for 2 weeks, likely long enough to satisfy a collateral requirement for a loan you are trying to close." Greg's eyes narrowed. "You are overthinking this." "Am I?" I leaned forward. "Because my bank told me someone tried to open a $2 million credit line on my house yesterday." Vera flinched. "That was an automated error. The system does that when assets are moved. The system orders a rush appraisal by mistake." "Abigail." The voice came from behind me. I froze. I knew that voice. It was the voice that had guilt-tripped me into eating vegetables I hated and dating boys I didn't like. I turned around. My mother was standing there. She was wearing her church conflict face, pained, disappointed, and armed with a tissue. "Mom," I asked, "what are you doing here?" "Vera told me you were meeting," Marion said, pulling up a chair and squeezing into the booth next to me. She smelled of lavender and desperation. She grabbed my hand, her grip surprisingly strong. "Abby, please look at your sister. She is trying to do something nice for you. She is trying to give you the house free and clear. Why do you have to be so difficult? She isn't giving me anything." "Mom," I said, pulling my hand away. "She is trying to cover her tracks. She is family." Mom's voice rose, and a few people at nearby tables looked over. "You are treating her like a criminal. She bought you that house in her heart. She has always looked out for you. Remember when she paid for your braces? Remember when she took you to Paris? I paid for my own braces when I was 22 because you said we couldn't afford them," I reminded her. "And I went to Paris on a scholarship." "You are rewriting history to make yourself the victim," Vera said sadly. "I am sitting here offering you a deed, a a physical deed. All you have to do is sign a piece of paper saying we are cool and you walk away with $1 million asset. Why is your pride worth more than a house? It's not pride, I said. It's the law. Just sign it, sweetie. Mom pleaded. For me, I can't stand this fighting. I didn't sleep a wink last night thinking about you two at war. Just sign the paper. Say thank you and let's go have lunch. I saw a nice Italian place next door. The pressure was suffocating. On one side, the cold corporate pressure of Greg and Vera. On the other, the warm, wet blanket of my mother's guilt. It was a pincer move designed to crush my logic under the weight of emotion. I looked down at the paper again. Paragraph 4. Gertor Abigail Knight waives any right to report this transaction to law enforcement or regulatory bodies. That was it. The kill shot. If I signed, I couldn't go to the police. I couldn't go to the FBI. I would be an accomplice. I need time. I said, I need to have my lawyer review this. We don't have time, Greg snapped. The filing window closes at noon if we want this recorded today. If you delay, the tax implications change. Could cost your sister $50,000 in penalties. Then she should have thought about that before she forged my name, I said. Lower your voice. Vera hissed. Stop using that word forgery? I asked louder this time. Fraud, identity theft. Ms. Knight, Greg said, his voice hard. If you walk away from this table, the offer is rescinded. Vera keeps the title. We will fight you in court. We will drain you. You have a small company. Can you afford a 3-year legal battle against the Hart estate? We are not doing that, Mom cried. No courts, Abigail. Pick up the pen. She shoved a pen into my hand. Felt hot against my skin. Sign it, Vera said, her eyes boring into mine. Sign it and you get your house back. Don't sign it and you lose everything. It is a binary choice, Abby. I looked at the pen. Then I looked at the recorder in my bag. I had enough. They had admitted the tax scheme. They had admitted the deadline. I will not sign this document, I said clearly. Fine, Vera said, reaching for her purse. Then we are done. However, I added, improvising. I will sign a simple deed acceptance, but not here and not with your witness. Pointed at Greg. I want a neutral ground, I said. I will sign if we go to an independent title company, someone who can verify my ID and notarize the signature properly. No agents, no advisors, just a stateless assistant officer. Vera paused. She looked at Greg. He gave a barely perceptible shrug. Fine, Vera said. If that will make you stop acting paranoid. There is a place 2 blocks from here. Prestige Title Services. They handle all my commercial closings. We can go there right now. Prestige Title? I asked. Yes, Greg said. They are fast. They are professional. We can walk there. Okay. I said I will meet you there in 20 minutes. I need to make a call first. We will wait for you. Vera said, don't run off, Abby. I'm warning you. I'm not running. I said, I just need to feed the meter. I stood up, my legs feeling like jelly. Mom tried to grab my arm again. You're gonna come back, right? You promise I'll be there. Mom? I said. I walked out of the coffee shop, the cool air hitting my flushed face as soon as I turned the corner, out of their line of sight. I pulled out my phone. I typed the name into a text to Miles. They want me to go to Prestige Title Services. Vera says they do all her closings. I waited 1 minute, 2 minutes. My phone rang. It was Miles. Do not go there, Miles barked. His voice was loud, angry. Why? I asked, ducking into a doorway. Are they fake? Worse, Miles said. They are real, but they are dirty. Prestige Title is run by a guy named Marcus Dean. He lost his law license 5 years ago for commingling escrow funds. He runs a volume shop now. He is the guy you go to when you want a backdated signature or a blind I turned to a missing spousal release. If you go there, they will swap the pages on you. You will think you are signing a receipt and you will be signing a power of attorney. She said they handle all her closings. I said, a chill running down my spine. I bet they do, Miles said. That explains how she moves so fast. Abigail, listen to me. This is the smoking gun. If she is steering you to a known dirty notary, we can prove conspiracy. But you cannot go in that room. If you are in the room and your signature ends up on a document, it becomes your word against 3 witnesses. So what do? You bail, Miles said. You ghost them and you let me file the injunction. I can't just leave. I said, I need one more thing. I need to know who the notary was on the original forged deed. The one named Elias Vance if Prestige is her spot. Maybe Elias works there. He might, Miles said. But do not risk it. I have an idea, I said. I won't go in, but I will make them show their hand. I hung up. I stood there for a moment watching the street traffic. I was done being the little sister. I was done being the victim. I walked back toward the coffee shop, but I didn't go in. I stood across the street behind a newsstand. I watched through the window. Vera was checking her makeup. Greg was on his phone. Mom was staring at the door looking anxious. I pulled up the number for Prestige Title Services on my phone. I hit call. Prestige Title, this is Brenda. Hi, I said, putting on my best chaotic assistant voice. This is Jessica calling from Vera Hart's office. She is on her way over with a client, but she forgot the name of the notary. She needs to see the one who helped with the night deed last week. Elias, is he in today? There was a pause. The sound of gum chewing. You mean Elias Vance? Brenda asked. Yeah, he's here, but he's fully booked. Did she have an appointment? She said Marcus would squeeze her in. I dropped the name Miles had given me. Oh, if Marcus said so, then sure, Brenda said. Tell her to come to the back entrance. We're doing construction in the lobby. Thanks, I said. I hung up. Bingo. Elias Vance wasn't just a random name. He was an employee of the very firm Vera was trying to lure me to, the same firm that handled all her closings. I had the link. I had the conspiracy. I looked at the coffee shop one last time. Vera looked at her watch. She looked annoyed. She didn't look like a sister waiting to give a gift. She looked like a predator whose lunch was running late.
Isena tekst to Vera.
I looked up Prestige Title. They have a 2-star rating on Yelp. I prefer my own lawyer's office. Meet me at Breener Associates at 2 p.m. Bring the deed. I saw Vera read the text. She slammed her hand down on the table. The coffee cups rattled. She showed the phone to Greg. He shook his head, looking furious. Mom put her face in her hands. They weren't going to meet me at Miles's office. We all knew that a fraudster walks into a lion's den. I turned and walked away, heading toward my car. The heavy feeling in my chest was gone, replaced by a cold, hard determination. I had avoided the trap, but more importantly, I had just found the map to their entire operation. Now it was time to burn it down. The conference room at Sovereign Title Escrow was a glass fishbowl suspended on the 14th floor of a downtown high-rise. It smelled of lemon polish and expensive coffee, the kind of sterile, neutral ground where wars were ended with signatures rather than gunshots. I sat at the long mahogany table with my hands folded in my lap. To my left sat Miles Breener, looking uncharacteristically sharp in a pressed charcoal suit. To my right sat Sarah Jenkins, the senior title officer Miles had handpicked for this execution. Sarah was a woman who looked like she ate tax codes for breakfast. She had steel gray hair cut in a precise bob and reading glasses on a chain. She had not smiled once since we entered the room 20 minutes ago. They are late, Sarah said, checking her watch. 7 minutes past the hour. It is a power move, Miles murmured, not looking up from his legal pad. She wants us to feel lucky that she showed up at all. She is not the one doing the favor today, I said. My voice was calm, but under the table, my heel was tapping a frantic rhythm against the carpet. At 10 minutes to, the elevator doors chimed. Vera swept into the lobby, trailing an aura of expensive perfume and frantic energy. She was wearing a white power suit that looked crisp and innocent, a stark contrast to the mud she was dragging our family through. Behind her, acting as her emotional shield, was my mother. Marion looked smaller today, her eyes darting around the office like a trapped bird. And trailing in the rear was Greg, the slick financial advisor from the coffee shop, clutching his briefcase like a life preserver. Vera pushed open the glass door and smiled. It was a dazzling practice thing. So sorry, she announced, dropping her Hermes bag onto the table. Traffic on Capitol Boulevard was a nightmare, and Mom needed to stop for water. You know how she gets. I am fine, Mom whispered, taking the seat Vera pulled out for her. She refused to meet my eyes. Let's get this over with, Vera said, clapping her hands together. I have a board meeting at 4. Greg has the papers. We just need a notary to stamp the release, right? She looked at Sarah Jenkins as if she were a waitress. I am Sarah Jenkins, Senior Title Officer, Sarah said, her voice dry as parchment. I will be conducting the review of the chain of title and overseeing any execution of documents today. Please take a seat, Ms. Hart. Vera blinked, her smile faltering for a microsecond. She wasn't used to being given orders. She sat. Excellent, Sarah said. Before we proceed with any new signatures, I need to verify the existing chain of title. Mr. Sullivan, please present the original recorded quitclaim deed from October 14th. Greg cleared his throat. We have a certified copy right here. He slid a document across the table. Sarah didn't touch it. I asked for the original. Mr. Sullivan, the one with the wet ink signature and the raised notary seal. In cases where fraud has been alleged, we do not accept copies. Alleged. Vera laughed. A high brittle sound. Who is alleging fraud? We are here to fix a clerical confusion. Abigail, tell her. I looked at my sister. I am not telling her anything. Vera produced the original deed. Vera's jaw tightened. She reached into her bag and pulled out a blue folder. She tossed it onto the table. Fine. Here, it is the original. Be careful with it. Sarah put on white cotton gloves. The theatricality of it was subtle but devastating. It signaled that this was not a business meeting. It was a forensic examination. She picked up the deed and laid it flat. She adjusted a desk lamp, shining the bright LED light directly onto the paper. Identification, Sarah said, extending a gloved hand. Vera sighed and slapped her driver's license onto the table. Sarah picked it up, scrutinized it, and placed it next to the deed. Then she produced a jeweler's loupe from her pocket. The room went silent. The only sound was the hum of the air conditioning and the scratching of Miles's pen on his legal pad. Mr. Sullivan, Sarah said without looking up, you are listed here as the preparer of this instrument. Did you witness the signing? I prepared the document, Greg stammered. I wasn't in the room for the signing that was handled by the notary. Elias Vance, Sarah read. She moved the loupe over the bottom of the page. Commission number 202100944. She reached for her laptop. I am cross-referencing this with the Secretary of State's database. Is this necessary? Vera snapped. This is insulting. I am Vera Hart. My family built half of this city. I sit on the board of the museum. Do you really think I would forge a document for a suburban ranch house? I think wealthy people often believe the rules are suggestions, Sarah said, her eyes glued to the screen. And my job is to ensure they are not. I could have your job, Vera threatened, her voice dropping to a low, dangerous register. I know the owner of this firm. We play golf. One call and this little investigation ends. You can certainly call him, Sarah said. But he is currently in federal prison for wire fraud. That is why I am running the firm now. So unless you have a line to the penitentiary, I suggest you let me finish. Miles let out a short, sharp cough to cover a laugh. I kept my face stone cold. Here we are, Sarah said. She turned the laptop screen so we could all see. Mr. Vance's commission is active. However, look at the signature on file with the state. She pointed to a digital image of a signature. It was loopy, large, and slanted to the right. Then she pointed to the signature on the deed in front of her. It was small, cramped, and slanted to the left. They do not match, Sarah stated. Not even close. People change their signatures, Greg said quickly. He might have been in a rush. Perhaps, Sarah said. But look at the seal. The stamp on this document indicates a commission expiration date of January 2026. But according to the state registry, Mr. Vance renewed his commission last month, and his new stamp, the only one valid for use on October 12th, has an expiration of 2028. This stamp is obsolete. It was likely an old one he kept in a drawer and failed to destroy. The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush bone. Which means, Sarah continued, taking off her glasses, that this document is invalid on its face. It was notarized with an expired seal, likely backdated, and the signature is suspect. In my professional opinion, this is a fraudulent instrument. That is ridiculous. Vera stood up, slamming her hands on the table. It is a clerical error. The notary grabbed the wrong stamp. You are going to hold up $1 million transfer because of a rubber stamp. I am going to hold it up because it is a crime, Sarah said calmly. Miles finally spoke. He leaned forward, his voice pleasant and deadly. Sarah, please secure that document. We will need it for the police report. I would like you to make a certified copy for our files and draft an affidavit of your findings immediately. You are not keeping my deed. Vera lunged for the paper. Sarah was faster. She slid the document onto her side of the table and covered it with her hand. This is now evidence in a disputed title claim. I am required by law to retain it. Vera turned to me. Her face was flushed, her eyes wild. The cool, collected billionaire was gone. In her place was a cornered animal. Abigail, stop this, she hissed. Do you know what you are doing? You are going to get me investigated. You are going to tank the stock price. Do you have any idea how many people rely on Hart Global for their paychecks? You should have thought of them before you stole my house, I said. I didn't steal it, Vera shouted. I borrowed it. I needed the equity to cover a margin call. I was going to pay it back next month. It was a bridge loan. You stupid, selfish girl. I was trying to save the empire by sacrificing me. I said by using an asset that was sitting there doing nothing. Vera screamed. You live in a 4-bedroom house alone. You have savings you don't touch. I am drowning in liquidity issues. And you are sitting on a pile of cash judging me. I am the one who carries this family. I am the one who pays for mom's condo. I am the one who pays for the boys' private school. And now you are the one who committed a felony. I said. Marion started to cry. It was a loud heaving sob. Please stop it, both of you. Vera, give her the house back. Abigail, don't call the police. We can fix this. We can just tear up the paper. We can't tear it up, Mom. I said, looking at her. It is recorded. It is in the public record. The only way to fix it is for Vera to admit she lied. I will not, Vera spat. If I admit to fraud, the SEC will trigger an audit. My lenders will call in their notes. I will lose everything. Then you have a choice, Miles interjected. You can sign a corrective deed right now, admitting to a Scrivener's error and returning the property to Abigail immediately. We will still file a complaint, but it might be civil instead of criminal if you cooperate. Or we walk out of here. I drive to the magistrate and I file for a warrant for your arrest for forgery and uttering." Vera looked at Miles. She looked at Sarah. She looked at me. "You would send your sister to jail?" she asked, her voice trembling. "For a house? For a betrayal?" I corrected. "You are a monster?" Vera whispered. "I hope you rot in that house alone." "I would rather rot alone than live on your lies," I said. Vera grabbed her bag. "I am not signing anything. Greg, come on. We are leaving. Call the legal team. Tell them to bury this in paperwork." She stormed out of the room. Marion lingered for a second, looking at me with a face full of tragedy. "You broke the family, Abigail," she sobbed. "I hope you are happy." She turned and ran after Vera, but Greg didn't move immediately. He was still sitting there, staring at the empty space where the deed had been. He looked pale. Sweat was beading on his forehead. "Mr. Sullivan," Miles asked, "are you coming?" Greg looked up. "I didn't know about the stamp," he said, his voice shaky. "I was told everything was above board. I was told Abigail agreed to this." "If you stay on that ship, Mr. Sullivan," Miles said, "you are going to go down with the captain." And the captain just admitted to a margin call on the record. Greg stood up so fast his chair tipped over. "I have to go. I need to make a call." He grabbed his briefcase and rushed toward the door. In his panic, he didn't zip the side pocket fully. As he swung the bag over his shoulder to squeeze through the door, a thick sheath of papers slipped out and fanned across the floor. "Damn it," Greg muttered. He scrambled to pick them up. "Leave it," Vera screamed from the hallway. Greg looked at Vera, then at the papers, then at me. He grabbed most of the pile, but one document had slid under the legs of the conference chair. He didn't see it. He turned and ran out the door. I waited until the elevator doors dinged shut. Then I stood up and walked over to the chair. I picked up the document. It was a heavy-bound report with a red cover. The title was printed in bold, black letters. Project Icarus Asset Shield Plan. Hart Family Exposure Confidential. I opened it. The first page was an executive summary. I scanned the lines and my breath caught in my throat. Objective to insulate personal assets of Vera Hart from pending litigation regarding the Uptown Loft collapse and federal inquiry into misappropriation of charitable funds. Strategy transfer of liquidity to offshore holding companies. Encumbrance of family-owned real estate to secure emergency operational capital. Target assets. 1. Marion Hart residence sold. 2. Abigail Knight. Residence acquisition pending. "Miles," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Look at this." Miles walked over and read the page over my shoulder. He let out a low whistle. "This isn't just a margin call," Miles said. "She isn't just broke, Abigail. She is being investigated for embezzlement. She stole from her own charity, and she was going to use my house to pay it back." I realized she wasn't trying to save the company. She was trying to stay out of prison. Sarah Jenkins took the document from my hand. "You might want to make a copy of this, too," she said, a glimmer of excitement in her eyes. Before I have to officially notice it, I looked at the door where my family had just exited. They had come in here to force me to sign a release. Instead, they had handed me the smoking gun that wouldn't just win me my house back. It would destroy them. "Part 7 is going to be interesting," Miles said, pulling out his phone. "I think we need to call the district attorney." "No," I said, closing the folder. "Not yet. First, I want to send an email." "To who?" "To the board of her charity," I said. "I think they deserve to know where their donations went. The war wasn't over, but the weapons had just changed. I wasn't fighting with a shield anymore. I had found a sword. The war for Oakwood Drive had moved from the physical to the digital, and the ammunition was no longer deeds and keys, but reputation. I arrived at my office at 7:30 in the morning, my eyes gritty from lack of sleep. I had spent the night in the hotel room, cross-referencing the Project Icarus document with public tax filings, trying to build a map of Vera's financial black hole. I felt ready for a legal battle. I was not ready for a social execution. I unlocked my computer and saw the red notification badge on my inbox. It wasn't the usual morning clutter of newsletters and market updates. It was a singular bald subject email from an address I didn't recognize, truthseeker99@protonmail.com. The subject line read, "Ethical concerns regarding Juniper Ridge management." My stomach tightened. I clicked it open. To the partners and clients of Juniper Ridge, it has come to our attention that your managing member, Abigail Knight, is currently under investigation for misappropriation of family assets and elder abuse. It is distressing to see a financial professional take advantage of a senile mother and a generous sister. We believe investors have a right to know who is handling their money. It was copied to my 3 biggest investors. My hands hovered over the keyboard. It was a classic smear campaign. The email was anonymous. The claims were vague enough to avoid immediate legal suits, but specific enough to plant a seed of doubt. Elder abuse. That was the phrase that made bile rise in my throat. Before I could even process a response, my desk phone rang. It was Marcus Thorne. He was my anchor client, a retired manufacturing magnate who had trusted me with $2 million of his portfolio. He was a man who valued discretion above returns. Abigail. His voice was cool, stripped of the usual warmth. I just received a very disturbing email. "Marcus, please listen," I said, my voice steady despite the hammering in my chest. "That is a malicious attack from a personal family dispute. There is absolutely no truth to I don't get involved in family disputes. Abigail." He cut me off. "And I don't like my name being CCD on drama. In my world, where there is smoke, there is usually a dumpster fire. There is no fire, Marcus. My accounts are audited. Your money is secure." "I am sure it is," he said. "But I think for now I would like to pause our new allocation. Let's hold off on the transfer we discussed for next week, just until the smoke clears. Marcus, if you pull back now, you validate the lie," I argued, desperate. "I am protecting my interests." "I am sorry, Abigail." The line went dead. I sat there, the receiver still in my hand, listening to the dial tone. Vera knew exactly where to hit me. She knew she couldn't win on the legal merits of the deed. So, she was scorching the earth around me. She wanted to starve me out. If I lost my clients, I lost my income. If I lost my income, I couldn't pay Miles. If I couldn't pay Miles, she kept the house. My cell phone buzzed. It was a notification from Heart Family Connect. The group chat that included my aunts, uncles, and cousins spread across the East Coast. Usually it was just birthday wishes and photos of dogs. Today it was a war zone. Vera had posted a long message. "Hi everyone. I didn't want to bring this here, but I am heartbroken. I tried to surprise Abigail with a gift. I paid off her house to give her a fresh start, and she has reacted with such hostility. She is suing me. She kicked Mom out of the house. I think she's having a breakdown. Please pray for her. We are just trying to help her. But she is so focused on money that she has forgotten what family means." Attached was a photo. It was a selfie of Vera and Mom. Vera looked brave and teary-eyed. Mom looked devastated, clutching a tissue. The responses were already rolling in. "Aunt Linda. Oh my God, Vera. I am so sorry. Abigail, how could you? Cousin Mike, that's messed up. Abby, Mom is staying in a hotel. Uncle Bob, ungrateful. This generation is so entitled." I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the Leave Group button. She had weaponized them. She had taken the narrative of her crime stealing my house and inverted it so perfectly that I was the villain for fighting back. I didn't reply. Engaging would only make me look defensive. I took screenshots of every message, every accusation, every lie. Into the evidence folder they went. Then my phone rang again. It was Mom. I debated not answering. But if I didn't, Vera would use it as proof that I was cutting off the family. "Hello, Mother?" I answered, my voice flat. "Abby?" Mom sobbed. She sounded genuinely wrecked. "Abby, please stop this. I am at the Ritz with Vera, and she is meeting with lawyers. She is going to destroy you, honey. I don't want that. She is already destroying me. Mom." I said she sent an email to my clients. "She cost me business this morning. She is just defending herself." Mom cried. "You backed her into a corner with that title lady. You embarrassed her. She committed a felony." I shouted, finally losing my cool. "She forged a deed. Why does that not matter to you?" "Because she is your sister," Mom wailed. "And Sister Cher. Why can't you just let her use the house for a few months? She said she would give it back once the loan clears. Why do you have to be so rigid? You are choosing a building over your own flesh and blood." "I am choosing the truth," I said. "And Mom, if you are staying at the Ritz on Vera's credit card, you are part of the problem. That money she is spending, it's stolen. It's from the charity. We have the documents." There was a silence on the other end. A long, heavy silence. "You don't know what you are talking about," Mom whispered. "Vera is a genius. She takes care of us. She is using you as a human shield." I said, "I am hanging up now. Don't call me until you are ready to tell the truth." I disconnected the call and threw the phone onto the desk. My hands were shaking. The emotional toll was heavier than the financial one. It felt like I was being erased, rewritten by a better storyteller. At 11 o'clock, a courier arrived at the front desk. He handed me a thick envelope with the logo of Wolf Harrow, the most aggressive litigation firm in the state. It was a cease and desist letter to Abigail Knight. "You are hereby ordered to cease and desist all defamatory statements regarding Vera Hart, Hart Global, and the property at 1402 Oakwood Drive. Your allegations of forgery and fraud are baseless and malicious. Continued dissemination of these lies will result in immediate legal action for leal, slander, and tortious interference with business relations. We demand you retract your statements to the title company immediately." It was designed to terrify. It was full of bold text, capitalized words, and threats of treble damages. I scanned it, then picked up my burner phone and called Miles. She sent a cease and desist. I told him. Miles laughed. It was a dry, rasping sound. Good, I asked. "It says she's going to sue me for millions." "Abigail, a cease and desist is what you send when you are scared." Miles explained. "If she had a real case, she would have just filed a lawsuit. She is trying to muzzle you because she knows you are right. She is trying to scare you into silence before the investigation gains traction. So what do? We return fire," Miles said. "But we don't send a letter. We send a preservation demand. I am drafting it now. We are putting Wolf Harrow on notice that if they destroy one single email, one single text message, or one single metadata log regarding that deed, they will be facing sanctions for spoliation of evidence. Lawyers hate spoliation. Abigail, it puts their own licenses at risk. Watch how fast her fancy lawyers start asking her hard questions when their own necks are on the line." "Do it," I said. Also, Miles added, his voice dropping. "I got the report back from the bank's fraud department regarding the HELIC application. And it is better than we thought," Miles said. "You know how the banker said the application was submitted using your company credentials?" "Yes." "Well, the confirmation email on the application wasn't yours. It was spoofed. They used adminjunipeorijholdings.net. Your domain is .com. The net domain was registered 3 days ago. Who registered it? It was registered anonymously, Miles said. But the payment for the domain registration, it was made with a corporate card linked to Vera Hart Properties LLC. I closed my eyes and let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. That connects the dots. I said she didn't just stumble into this. She pre-planned the identity theft. She bought the domain to impersonate me. Exactly. Miles said this moves it from family dispute to wire fraud. I am sending this to the detective. But Abigail, you need to lock that title down now. Not just the list pendants. You need to file the official fraud alert with the county clerk. I am on my way there now, I said. I hung up and grabbed my bag. I felt a renewed sense of purpose. The email to my clients had hurt, but this was evidence. This was the nail in the coffin. I spent the next 2 hours at the Register of Deeds office. I filed the notice of list pendants, effectively stamping a giant red warning sign on the property records. Then I filed a request for notice of unauthorized recording, which meant if anyone, even me, tried to touch that title again, the clerk would have to call me personally. I was walking out of the courthouse, blinking in the harsh afternoon sunlight. When my phone rang, it was Kelsey. Abby, she said, her voice breathless. You are not going to believe what I just found. Did you find another fake notary? I asked, walking toward my car. No, Kelsey said. Better. You know I still have friends in PR, right? Some of the girls I used to work with at the agency. Yeah. Well, one of them freelances for Vera's crisis management team. She just sent me a draft of a press release that Vera asked them to prepare 2 days ago. Chas. 2 days ago, I stopped walking before the dinner. Yes, listen to this. Kelsey paused and I could hear papers rustling. Here is the headline. Hart family announces restructuring of assets to protect legacy. Okay, I said. That sounds like standard corporate speak. Wait for the second paragraph. Kelsey said in a move to consolidate liabilities, Abigail Knight, managing member of Juniper Ridge, has agreed to assume responsibility for certain debt obligations to assist in the stabilization of the family estate. Ms. Knight expressed her desire to give back to the family that supported her early career. I felt the blood drain from my face. She wrote that before she even gave me the deed. I whispered. She didn't just want your house, Abby, Kelsey said, her voice hard. She was setting you up to be the fall guy. She was going to dump the debt on you and then release the statement saying you agreed to it. She was going to frame you as the person who took responsibility for the financial mess she created. She was going to make me the face of her bankruptcy. I realized the cruelty of it was breathtaking. It wasn't just theft. It was a calculated assassination of my character and my financial future to save her own skin. Can you send me that draft? I asked. I already sent it to your encrypted email, Kelsey said. And Abby, the metadata shows the author as Vera Hart. She wrote the lies herself. I looked at the courthouse behind me. I looked at the phone in my hand. Vera thought she was playing a game of social pressure. She thought that by turning the family against me and scaring my clients, I would fold. She thought I was the little sister who would do anything for approval. But she had made one fatal error. She had written down her plan. I dialed Miles. We have it, I said, my voice cold as ice. We have proof of premeditation. We have proof she planned to frame me for the debt before the transfer even happened. Send it to me, Miles said. And Abigail, don't go back to the hotel. Why? Because once I send this to her lawyers, Miles said she is going to realize that this isn't a civil case anymore. She is going to realize she is looking at prison time and desperate people do dangerous things. I am not afraid of her. I said, you should be, Miles said. But right now, let's focus on the kill. I am going to attach this PR draft to our response to her cease and desist. I am going to ask her how she plans to sue you for defamation when she wrote a press release admitting to the scheme 2 days ago. I hung up and got into my car. I looked at the Hart Family Connect group chat one last time. Cousin Mike had posted, "Just apologize to Vera. Abby, fix this." I typed my first response of the day. "I will fix it. Just wait for the press release." I hit send. Then I blocked the group. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the parking lot. I wasn't just fighting for a house anymore. I was fighting for my name, and I had just found the weapon that would win the war. The email arrived on my burner phone at 6:15 in the morning. It sat there glowing in the dim light of the hotel room, a digital lifeline thrown from the wreckage of my sister's empire. The sender was Blue Heron 22, a throwaway handle. The subject line was simply the notary log. The body of the message was brief, paranoid, and terrifyingly specific. I saw what happened at the title office yesterday. Greg is shredding everything. I am not going to federal prison for a bonus I haven't even received. Meet me at Pull Park by the Carousel. 8 o'clock. Come alone. I have the rest of the file. I didn't hesitate. I threw on a hoodie and jeans, looking less like a CEO and more like a woman on the run, which in a way I was. I drove to the park, parking 3 rows away from the entrance. The morning air was crisp, smelling of damp earth and leaves. Pull Park was quiet at this hour, populated only by aggressive joggers and mothers pushing strollers with grim determination. I spotted her immediately. She was sitting on a bench facing the carousel, her knees bouncing nervously. She looked young, maybe 25, with the kind of polished, frantic energy that defines entry-level analysts at high-pressure firms. I recognized her vaguely. She was the assistant who had handed me water at Vera's office a year ago. Chloe, that was her name. I approached slowly, keeping my hands visible. "Chloe," I asked softly. She jumped, clutching her tote bag to her chest. She looked around wilted. "You came alone?" "Just me," I said, sitting at the other end of the bench. "Why are you helping me?" "Because Greg Sullivan is an idiot," Chloe said, her voice shaking. "And Vera is worse. They think because they have money. The rules are just suggestions. But I signed the engagement letter for the audit. My name is on the compliance checks. When the FBI kicks down the door, Vera will have expensive lawyers. I will have a public defender. I am not going down for them." She reached into her bag and pulled out a manila envelope. She slid it across the bench. "This is what Greg dropped yesterday," she said. "Or the parts he didn't realize were missing. But this," she tapped a second thinner folder. "This is what I printed this morning before they locked me out of the server." I opened the folder. The first page was a screenshot of a digital calendar. It was labeled Mobile Notary Dispatch. October 12th. "You were looking for Elias Vance. Chloe said he isn't just a notary at the title company. He runs a side hustle, a mobile service for high net worth clients who don't want to leave their penis. Look at the GPS log." I scanned the page. The log showed a notary dispatch for Elias Vance on October 12th at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The location pin wasn't my office. It wasn't a neutral location. It was the Paramount, the luxury condo building where Vera lived. He went to her apartment. I whispered to notarize my signature. "Vera signed it," Chloe said. "I wasn't there, but I saw the invoice. It was billed as executive proxy signing. That is their code for Vera signs for everyone. Elias stamped it because Vera pays him $5,000 a month as a retainer." "And the second document?" I asked, pulling out a stapled packet titled Deed Reversal Strategy. "That is the playbook," Chloe said. "Read it," I read. And as I did, the cold nod in my stomach turned into a hard burning stone. The document outlined a circular transaction. Step 1, transfer asset. 1402 Oakwood to Vera Hart Properties LLC to bolster balance sheet for Bridge Loan B. Step 2. Execute loan agreement using consolidated assets as collateral. Step 3. Wait 10 business days for loan disbursement. Step 4. Execute gift deed returning asset to original owner Abigail Knight. Step 5. Obtain general release from Abigail Knight to cure title defects. She never wanted the house. I realized the horror of it washing over me. She wanted the loan. She needs cash, Chloe explained desperately. She has a liquidity crunch that would make your head spin. She needed to show the bank she had unencumbered real estate to get the bridge loan approved. She stole your title, put it on her books for 2 weeks to show the auditor she had assets. And now that the loan is in the final underwriting stage, she needs to dump the house back on you. But why give it back? I asked. If she needs the collateral because the house is toxic, Chloe said. The loan she's getting, it comes with a lien. If she keeps the house, she has to service the debt by gifting it back to you and getting you to sign that release. She transfers the title back to you, but the lien from the loan would eventually attach to it. She gets the cash, you get the house and the hidden debt. And because you signed the release saying you accepted the property as is, you couldn't sue her when the bank came to foreclose. The phrase I said, my voice trembling, you can hate me but take the house. It wasn't a gift, Chloe said. It was a disposal. She was disposing of a liability she had just created. She needed you to take the house back so she wouldn't be left holding the bag when the audit hit. I looked at the young woman. She was terrified. But she was right. Vera hadn't just stolen my home. She had turned me into a hazardous waste dump for her financial crimes. Thank you, Chloe, I said. You just saved my life. I am leaving town, Chloe said, standing up. I have an aunt in Ohio. I am going to stay there until the subpoenas start flying. Don't tell them where you got this. I won't. She walked away, disappearing into the morning mist. I sat there for a moment clutching the envelope. I had the how, the mobile notary log, and I had the why, the deed reversal strategy. I drove straight to Miles's office. When I walked in, Miles was on the phone, screaming at someone in the district attorney's office. He slammed the receiver down when he saw me. They are dragging their feet, he growled. They say it is still a civil dispute until we show criminal intent. I placed the deed reversal strategy on his desk. Is this criminal enough? I asked. Miles put on his glasses. He read the first page. He flipped to the second. Then he stopped. He looked up at me, and for the first time he looked genuinely shocked. This is conspiracy to commit bank fraud, he said. And wire fraud and money laundering, Abigail. This is a federal indictment on paper. And here is the notary log, I said, slapping the second paper down. Proof she signed it in her apartment while I was in Atlanta. We are done playing defense, Miles said. He grabbed his coat. I am going to the judge. I am filing for an ex parte emergency injunction. We are going to freeze every asset she has. We are going to request a preservation order for the county clerk to lock that deed in a vault so it doesn't accidentally get lost. I need to solidify my alibi. I said, if she tries to say I was at her apartment, I need to prove I wasn't. Do it. Miles said, get everything. Don't leave a single minute unaccounted for. I spent the next 3 hours in Miles's conference room, building a fortress of time. I logged into my Uber account. I downloaded the trip history for October 12th. 2:15 in the afternoon. Pick up at Hartsfield-Jackson Airport. Drop off at Omni Hotel, Atlanta. I called the Omni Hotel. I spoke to the security manager. I need a copy of my keycard access log. I told him. And if you have lobby footage from check-in, I need that preserved. We usually wipe footage after 30 days. The manager said, it has been 12 days. I said, save it. Subpoena is coming. I printed my credit card statement. 2:30 in the afternoon. The Coffee Bean, Atlanta, Georgia, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Conference registration fee, Atlanta, Georgia. I laid the papers out on the table at 2 o'clock on October 12th, when Elias Vance was stamping a deed in Vera's penthouse in Raleigh. I was buying a latte 400 m away in Atlanta. The physical impossibility was absolute. My phone rang. It was my mother. I stared at the screen. I was tired. I was so tired of the manipulation, but I needed to know one thing. I answered. Hello, Abigail. Mom's voice was different today. It wasn't the demanding matriarch or the weeping victim. It was small, frightened. Abigail, are you okay? I am building a criminal case against your daughter, Mom, I said. So no, I am not okay. I wanted to tell you, Mom stammered. I didn't know what I didn't know. She had already done the paperwork, Mom said. Her voice broke. Vera told me she wanted to push you. She said if she threatened to take the house, you would realize how much you needed us. She said it was a tough love lesson. She asked me for the key so she could stage the movie and to scare you. I closed my eyes. You thought it was a prank? A prank that involved moving trucks. I thought it was theater. Mom admitted. She said we would give it back the next day. She said once Abby signs the paper and cries a little, we give it back and she will be grateful. I didn't know she had actually filed a deed. Abby, I swear when that lady at the title office talked about the date, October 12th, I was with Vera that day. She wasn't with you. She was at the apartment. I know, I said. I have the logs. I am scared. Abby. Mom whispered. Vera is acting strange. She is shredding things. She keeps talking about flight risks. Did I help her commit a crime? Yes, Mom, I said brutally. You provided the means of entry. You gave her the key. You facilitated a felony. I didn't mean to. Mom sobbed. I just wanted the family back together. Well, you got your wish, I said. We are all going to be together in a courtroom. You need to get a lawyer. Mom, not Vera's lawyer. Your own. Can't you stop it? She pleaded. Can't you just take the house back? She offered it to you. It wasn't an offer, Mom. It was a trap and I'm not stepping in it. I hung up. My heart was pounding. My mother was weak. Yes, she was easily manipulated. But her confession confirmed the final piece of the psychological puzzle. Vera had used Mom's desire for family unity to weaponize her against me. She had turned my mother's love into a burglary tool. That was unforgivable. Miles walked back into the room. He looked like he had run a marathon, but he was smiling. The judge signed it, he said, holding up a piece of paper. Temporary restraining order, asset freeze, and an order for the sheriff to seize the original deed from the clerk's office for forensic analysis. Vera can't sell a pencil without court approval as of 5 minutes ago. Does she know yet? I asked. Her lawyers just got the email, Miles said. The scream should be audible from here any second. I picked up my burner phone. I opened the text thread with Vera. The last message was her threat to bury me. I looked at the deed reversal strategy on the table. I looked at the notary log. I looked at the alibi timeline. I typed 3 sentences. Okay, I will take the house. See you in court. I hit send. I watched the delivery receipt turn from sent to delivered. Then almost instantly to read. 3 bubbles appeared indicating she was typing. Then they disappeared. Then they appeared again. Then they stopped. She didn't reply. For the first time in her life, Vera Hart had nothing to say. She knew. She knew that I knew. And she knew that the gift she had thrown on the table like a gauntlet had just become the evidence that would end her. Let's go, Miles, I said, standing up. I want to be there when the sheriff serves the papers. To the house, Miles asked. No, I said, to her penthouse. That's where the crime happened. That's where the notary was. That's where the truth is. I walked out of the office. The sun was high and bright. The investigation was over. The prosecution was about to begin. The courtroom was cold, air-conditioned to a temperature that felt designed to preserve dead things. I sat at the plaintiff's table, my hands clasped so tightly together that my knuckles were white. To my right, Miles Breener was arranging his files with the precise rhythmic movements of a surgeon laying out instruments. Across the aisle, the defense table looked like a board meeting for a Fortune 500 company. Vera sat in the center, flanked by 3 lawyers in bespoke suits. She wasn't wearing the power white she had worn to the title office. Today, she was in a soft powder blue cardigan and a modest skirt. She looked like a school teacher or a soccer mom. Anyone but a woman who had forged a deed to steal her sister's home behind the railing in the public gallery. My mother sat alone on a wooden bench, clutching her purse to her chest, looking like she wished the floor would open up and swallow her whole. "All rise," the bailiff bellowed. Judge Elainer Vance, no relation to the fraudulent notary, Miles had assured me, swept onto the bench. She was a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and a reputation for having zero tolerance for wasting time. "We are here on the matter of Knight versus Hart," Judge Vance said, adjusting her glasses. "This is an emergency hearing for a temporary restraining order and an asset freeze. Mr. Sterling, you represent the defendant." Ver's lead attorney, a man named Arthur Sterling, who cost $800 an hour, stood up. He had a voice like oiled leather. "I do, Your Honor, and I must protest the very existence of this hearing. This is at its core a family dispute that has spiraled out of control due to the plaintiff's emotional instability. We are talking about a gift, Your Honor. My client, Ms. Hart, attempted to gift a property to her sister. The paperwork was perhaps rushed in the excitement of the gesture, but to call it fraud is a gross misuse of this court's resources." He gestured to me with a pitying smile. "Ms. Knight is clearly confused. She is lashing out because of personal resentments that have nothing to do with the law." I felt the heat rise in my cheeks, but I didn't move. Miles placed a hand on my forearm, a silent command to hold steady. "Mr. Breener?" the judge asked. Miles stood up. He didn't smile. He didn't use flowery language. He picked up a single piece of paper. "Your Honor, we are not here to discuss feelings. We are here to discuss physics and geography." On October 12th, the date the defendant claims my client signed a quit-claim deed in Raleigh, Abigail Knight was 400 miles away in Atlanta. Miles walked to the bench and handed the bailiff the file. "Exhibit A." Miles continued. "Hot receipts, conference registration, and timestamp security footage from the Omni Hotel in Atlanta, all confirming Ms. Knight's presence from 2 o'clock in the afternoon until midnight unless Ms. Knight has discovered the secret to teleportation. She did not stand before a notary in Raleigh at 2:15 that afternoon." The judge flipped through the pages. Her expression remained neutral. "Mr. Sterling," she asked. Sterling cleared his throat. "Your Honor, dates on notary logs can be clerical errors. A simple mistake by a third-party service provider. It hardly proves malicious intent by my client. If it were just a date, perhaps," Miles countered. "But let's look at the notary himself. Exhibit B. The stamp used on the deed belongs to an Elias Vance. The stamp is expired. The signature does not match Mr. Vance's official filing with the Secretary of State. And we have a log from a mobile notary service dispatching Mr. Vance to Vera Hart's private penthouse at the exact time the deed was allegedly signed." Vera shifted in her seat. She whispered something furiously to Sterling. "Circumstantial," Sterling argued. "Ms. Hart frequently uses notaries for business. This proves nothing about this specific document. Then let's talk about the motive." Miles said. He turned and looked directly at Vera. "Your Honor, the defense claims this was a gift, a generous act of sisterly love. but gifts do not usually come with a requirement to sign a legal release of liability. Miles produced the document Vera had tried to force me to sign at the coffee shop. The acknowledgement of gift and general release. Exhibit C. Miles said the defendant presented this to my client 2 days ago. It is not just a receipt. It is a legal shield. Paragraph 4 explicitly waives Ms. Knight's right to sue for any defects in title or irregularities in recording. If this was a clean gift, why the need for immunity? Judge Vance picked up the document. She read it slowly. Then she lowered the paper and looked at Vera. The softness in the judge's eyes was gone. Ms. Hart, the judge said, why would you need your sister to release you from liability for a house you were giving her for free? Vera stood up. Sterling tried to grab her arm to stop her, but she shook him off. Because Abigail is litigious, Vera said, her voice trembling with righteous indignation. She looks for problems. I knew she would find something to complain about, a tax issue, a zoning thing. I just wanted it to be clean. I was trying to protect the family from her drama. By forging her signature, the judge asked. I didn't forge it, Vera snapped. I facilitated it. She agreed to it verbally. We are family. We don't stand on ceremony for every little signature. In this court, Ms. Hart, we stand on ceremony for everything, the judge said coldly. Sit down. Vera sat, her face flushing a deep, angry red. We have one more piece of evidence, Your Honor, Miles said. And this one is not circumstantial. He nodded to the back of the room. A man in a gray suit stood up. We have an affidavit from the fraud department of First National Bank. Miles said, Exhibit D. On the morning of October 24th, an application for a home equity line of credit in the amount of $2 million was submitted against the property in question. The courtroom went deadly silent. The application was submitted under the name of Juniper Ridge Holdings. Miles continued. But the digital fingerprint tells a different story. The bank's cybersecurity team traced the submission IP address. It did not come from Ms. Knight's office. It came from a dedicated fiber optic line registered to Hart Global. Miles paused for effect and the email address used to verify the account. It was a spoofed domain registered using a corporate credit card issued to Vera Hart. Sterling looked at the papers Miles had just slid onto his table. He closed his eyes for a brief second. He knew. He knew he had been lied to by his own client. This was not a gift, Your Honor. Miles concluded. This was a theft. Ms. Hart stole the title to secure a loan because she is insolvent. She tried to use her sister's home as an ATM. And when Ms. Knight discovered it, Ms. Hart tried to coerce her into signing a release to cover the crime. Lies. Vera screamed. It happened so fast the bafe barely had time to move. Vera shot up from her chair, pointing a shaking finger at me. You are twisting everything, she shouted, her voice echoing off the high ceilings. I was saving the company. I was saving the family. You selfish little brat. You have that house just sitting there doing nothing. While I'm fighting to keep the lights on, you owe me. You owe this family. Hart, sit down or I will hold you in contempt. Judge Vance banged her gavel. I won't sit down. Vera was unraveling, the polished veneer cracking to reveal the desperate, cornered narcissist underneath. She looked at me with pure hatred. You are ruining everything. The audit, the investors, the reputation. You are burning it all down. And for what? For a house. You are destroying your own blood for a pile of bricks. I stood up. I didn't shout. I didn't point. I just looked at her calmly and clearly. No, Vera, I said. I am not destroying it because of the house. I am destroying it because you thought I would sign. Vera froze. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. You thought I was weak, I said. You thought you could steal my life and I would thank you for it because I was desperate for your approval. That is why we are here. Not because of the money, but because you underestimated me. That is enough. Judge Vance slammed the gavel down again, harder this time. Bailiff, if the defendant speaks out of turn one more time, remove her. The room fell into a heavy, suffocating silence. Vera sank back into her chair, her chest heaving. Sterling was staring at his desk, refusing to look at her. Judge Vance shuffled her papers. She didn't need to deliberate. The court finds that the plaintiff has met the burden of proof for an emergency injunction. The judge ruled. Her voice was clipped and final. I am granting the temporary restraining order. Ms. Hart, you are to stay 500 yards away from the plaintiff and the property at 1402 Oakwood Drive. She signed a document with a flourish. Furthermore, I am issuing an immediate asset freeze on Vera Hart Properties LLC and Hart Global to prevent the dissipation of assets pending a full trial. The Register of Deeds is ordered to lock the title for the subject property. She looked over her glasses at Vera, and given the evidence of forgery, identity theft, and bank fraud presented today, I am forwarding the transcript of this hearing and all exhibits to the District Attorney's Office for review. This is no longer just a civil matter. Ms. Hart, you have serious questions to answer. Court is adjourned. The gavel cracked like a gunshot. Vera didn't move. She sat there staring at the empty air. The reality of what had just happened was crashing down on her. The assets were frozen. The loan was dead. The criminal investigation was live. Sterling packed his briefcase in silence. He leaned over and whispered something to Vera, probably that he was resigning, and walked away. Miles turned to me and exhaled. You did good, Abigail. Is it over? I asked. The civil fight is over, Miles said. You will get the house back. The criminal fight, that is just starting. But that is not your burden to carry anymore. That belongs to the state. I nodded. I felt lighter but also hollow. We walked out of the courtroom into the wide marble hallway. The echo of our footsteps sounded lonely. Abigail. I turned. My mother was running after us. She looked old. The carefully applied makeup was stray with tears, and her posture, usually so rigid, was slumped. Abby? She gasped, grabbing my arm. I gently removed her hand. Mom, you should go be with Vera. She is going to need you. I can't, Mom whispered, looking back at the courtroom doors with fear in her eyes. She is going to be so angry. She will blame me. She will say I didn't support her enough. She probably will, I agreed. Abby. Please, Mom said, her voice dropping to a frantic whisper. You have to understand. I had to do what she said. She pays for everything. My condo, my car, my health insurance. She told me if I didn't help her get the key, she would cut me off. She said I would be on the street. I stared at my mother. For years, I had thought she favored Vera because she loved her more. Because Vera was the success, the star. But it wasn't love. It was a hostage situation. She threatened you? I asked. She always threatens. Mom said, wiping her nose. She says she is the golden goose and we all have to do what she says or we starve. I was scared. Abby, I am 65 years old. I have no savings. I was just trying to survive. So you sacrificed me, I said, to save your condo. I thought you would be okay. Mom pleaded. You are so strong. You always figure things out. I thought you would just handle it. I didn't think she would go to jail. She is going to jail because she broke the law. Mom, not because of me. But what about me? Mom asked, her voice rising in panic. If they freeze her accounts, what happens to my stipend? What happens to my bills next month? I looked at this woman who had raised me. I saw the fear, the selfishness, and the tragic dependency that Vera had cultivated like a garden of poisonous weeds. Vera had bought her loyalty and now the check had bounced. I don't know, Mom, I said. I reached into my purse and pulled out a $20 bill. It was the only cash I had. Here, I said, pressing it into her hand. Take a taxi back to the hotel and then call a lawyer, because when the forensic accountants start digging, they are going to ask why you gave her that key. Abby, don't leave me, she cried, reaching for me again. I have to go home, I said, stepping back. I have a house to clean. I turned and walked toward the exit. I could hear my mother crying behind me, a sound that used to break my heart. Now, it just sounded like the inevitable crash of a structure built on sand. Miles opened the heavy glass door for me. The sunlight hit my face, warm and real. You okay? He asked. No, I said, but I own my own house, and right now that is enough. We walked down the steps of the courthouse. I didn't look back. The family I thought I was fighting to save had never really existed. It was just a series of transactions. And today I had finally closed the account. The fallout from the hearing was not a bang, but a slow, suffocating constriction of Vera Hart's world. 3 days after Judge Vance issued the asset freeze, the machinery of the state finally began to turn with the grinding weight of a steamroller. Detective Holloway from the Economic Crimes Unit had formally requested an interview with Vera. It was not an arrest, not yet, but it was the polite invitation that precedes handcuffs. I sat in Miles's office, watching the rain streak against the window. The city looked gray and washed out, mirroring how I felt inside. Her lawyers are stalling, Miles said, hanging up the phone. They are claiming she is too medically fragile to come down to the station. They are offering a written statement instead. She isn't fragile, I said, staring at the rain. She is cornered. The detective knows that, Miles assured me. He is looking at the bank fraud application. He is looking at the notary logs. He just needs one thing to tie the intent to the action. He needs to prove that she wasn't just mistaken about the deed, but that she actively planned to force you to accept the liability. My burner phone buzzed on the desk. I looked down. It was Vera. She had been calling every hour for the last 24 hours. I hadn't answered a single time. She is persistent, Miles noted. She is panicked, I corrected. The phone stopped ringing. A moment later, a text message appeared. Pick up the phone. Abigail, we need to settle this. Name your price. You want money. You want the house paid off. Just tell me what ends this. I read it out loud. Miles sat up straight in his chair. She is trying to negotiate a settlement, he said. She still thinks this is a civil lawsuit. She doesn't realize she is negotiating with a witness in a criminal investigation. Do I answer? Yes, Miles said, his eyes narrowing. But not on the phone. Do not let her hear your voice. Do not give her the satisfaction of an emotional reaction. Text her back. Ask her a direct question. Force her to clarify the timeline. I picked up the phone. My thumbs hovered over the glass. I didn't type what I wanted to say. I didn't type I hate you or how could you. I typed a deposition question. I need you to clarify one thing before I consider talking. Did you file the deed on October 14th specifically so you could pressure me to sign the release at dinner? I hit send. Now we wait, Miles said. The response came in less than 30 seconds. It was fast, sloppy, and dripping with the arrogance that had been Vera's armor for 40 years. It was a procedural necessity, Abby. The deed had to be recorded to satisfy the lender's collateral requirement for the bridge loan. I needed you to sign the release to clean up the title afterward so the bank wouldn't flag the transfer. It was just paperwork cleanup. Stop acting like I murdered someone. I showed the screen to Miles. He let out a long, slow breath. There it is. What? She just admitted that the recording of the deed was for the lender. Miles said, pointing at the word collateral. And she admitted the release was to clean up the fraud. She just confirmed the deed reversal strategy was real. She confessed to bank fraud and coercion in a text message. He took the phone from my hand. I am screenshots this. I am sending it to Detective Holloway right now. This destroys her gift defense completely. The final confrontation happened 2 days later. It wasn't in a courtroom and it wasn't at my house. It was in a deposition conference room at the courthouse. A neutral ground agreed upon for the surrender of the keys. Vera was there accompanied by a new lawyer. Arthur Sterling had apparently resigned. Her new counsel was a public defender type, overworked and looking exhausted already. Vera looked terrible. The glowing golden aura of the billionaire was gone. Her hair was pulled back in a severe bun. Her skin was shallow and she wore no makeup. She looked like a woman who hadn't slept since the hearing. I walked in with Miles. I didn't sit down. I stood at the end of the table. We are here to facilitate the return of the physical keys and the execution of the corrective deed, Miles announced. This is not a negotiation. Vera looked up at me. Her eyes were dark, filled with a mixture of rage and confusion. She still didn't understand. She still thought there was a way to spin this. You really did it, she whispered. You really called the police on your own sister. You robbed your own sister, I said. The police were just the cleanup crew. Vera laughed. A bitter, jagged sound. I was trying to help you, Abigail. You are so small. You live in your small house with your small life. I was trying to give you a stake in something bigger. The Hart legacy. The Hart legacy is a Ponzi scheme, I said. And I want no part of it. Vera stood up. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the keychain, the one with the fuzzy pink charm my mother had used to let her in. She threw it on the table. It slid across the polished wood and hit my hand. Fine, Vera said. She leaned forward, her hands flat on the table. You can hate me, but take the house. The room went silent. She had said it again. The same line from the restaurant. The same line that had started this entire nightmare. But this time, the context had shifted entirely at the restaurant. Take the house had sounded like generosity. Now in this sterile room, with the weight of the evidence files stacked between us, it sounded like what it really was. Take the blame, take the debt, take the ruin. I am taking the house, Vera, I said, my voice steady and cold. But I am not taking the fall. I picked up the keys. And just so you know, Miles added, looking at Vera's lawyer, we just submitted a supplemental evidence package to the district attorney. It includes the text message your client sent 2 days ago admitting to the collateral scheme. It includes the bank's IP trace, and it includes the Project Icarus file we recovered from Mr. Sullivan. Vera's face went white. She looked at her lawyer. What text message? The lawyer asked, looking alarmed. The one where she admitted the deed was filed to satisfy a lender. Miles said, the chain of evidence is closed. The deed, the release, the PR draft, the bank fraud, and the confession. It is a perfect circle. Vera sank back into her chair. The fight went out of her instantly. She didn't scream. She didn't threaten. She just stared at the table, her mouth slightly open as the realization hit her. It wasn't a game of paperwork anymore. It wasn't a family squabble. She was going to prison. I think we are done here, Miles said. We turned to leave. Abby, Vera whispered. I stopped at the door. I didn't turn around. Mom is going to lose the condo, Vera said. Her voice was flat, dead. When they seize my accounts, the payments stop. She will have nowhere to go. She has a choice, I said to the door. She can testify or she can pack. I walked out. The final legal order came down that afternoon. Judge Vance signed the permanent injunction. The corrective deed was recorded by the clerk, officially stripping Vera Hart Properties LLC of any claim to 1402 Oakwood Drive and restoring the title fully to Juniper Ridge Holdings. The list pendants was lifted, but the asset freeze on Vera remained. I drove home as the sun was setting. The street was quiet. The blue mule truck was long gone, towed away by the rental company after the credit card on file was declined. The neighborhood looked exactly as it had a week ago. The hydrangeas were a little trampled where my nephews had played football, and there was a tire mark on the grass, but otherwise, the house stood silent and stoic. I pulled into the driveway. I walked up the steps to the front porch. The camera I had installed winked at me, a small red eye in the twilight. I looked at the door. The lock was different now. The brass handle was gone, replaced by the heavy-duty brushed steel keypad I had installed. I didn't reach for a key. I didn't need one. I punched in the code. 1402 pound. The mechanism roared. A heavy solid bolt retracted with a satisfying mechanical thunk. I pushed the door open. The air inside was stale. It smelled of the perfume my mother wore and the lingering scent of strangers. My furniture was rearranged. There were empty soda cans on the counter. A throw blanket I didn't own was draped over the sofa, but it was empty. I walked into the center of the living room. I stood there listening to the silence. For 34 years, I had thought family was the safety net. I thought it was the one thing you could never lose, the one door that would always be open. I was wrong. Family was just people, and sometimes people were dangerous. I walked back to the front door. I looked out at the street, at the world where Vera was currently answering questions in a small windowless room, and where my mother was likely packing boxes in a luxury condo she could no longer afford. I stepped inside and closed the heavy mahogany door. Click. The sound echoed through the hallway. It was sharp. It was final. It was the sound of a vault closing, locking the chaos out and the peace in. From now on, family was no longer a key that opened my door. I had changed the locks, and for the first time in my life I was safe.